Well, I think we're getting just a little ahead of the track that I had planned, but it's all very interesting. I want to go back to you and your experiences for a minute. I know it's embarrassing to you, and you probably, as you say, you're depressed even thinking about it. But earlier we spoke about some of the things that you endured while you were in prison. Would you cover some of those?
Well, the most important thing is that they give you no hope, or they at least try to, show you that there's no hope at all for you. And they try to convince me that if I do not comply, my sentence would be prolonged, which means at the end of 3 years of the sentence, I will not be able to get out. Because I did not, confess, I did not give up my faith, that kind of things. They say they're still a criminal, you have not been reformed. In their term, every criminal should be reformed well, before they get out of the prison. This is the function of the prison. And, just to do a little comparison, because in foreign countries, if anybody who's, been put into prison, that's a punishment itself, because you lose your freedom, you cannot do whatever you want to do. But in China, that's only the beginning. Being in prison is only the beginning. You have to go through all other torturement in order to be reformed in their term.
Well, how did they try to get you to confess that you had committed a crime?
Well, they did that brainwash for all those 3 years. I had no other source to know the right information about what's happened outside this world. I was surrounded by all those criminals, who were like arranged by the police authority, and I was forced to, to talk with those so-called policemen. They forced me to talk with them. I was forced to write the thought report or mind report. I refused to do so. They punished me severely, forced me to sit in a very little stool all day long for many days. The longest day was 48 days consecutively. Every day I was to sit in a little stool like this high. I should still sit straight. If I feel like this and that, they would come and kick me. And I was not allowed to talk to anybody. I was not allowed to watch TV or read any newspapers or books. So my brain was become like diamond after some time, and my back, my butt hurt a lot. So that was all this kind of punishment. They forced, when I refused to do the slave labor, they forced me to stand straight all day long for 2 weeks. When I told the American consul what happened, they denied that, and they played another little trick. And on the day when the American consul came to visit me, they put a little stool, beside me, like 1 meter away, and they did not tell me to sit down. Okay, and when I told this story, about being, forced to stand all day long for so many days, and I, was so hurt, because my back and was, painful, and then they denied that. They said that I was allowed to sit from the very beginning, but he did not want to sit. So this is like, they deny all those things by using these little tricks. What, it's ridiculous, from outside people's, point of view, but they have been doing these all kind of little tricks.
You mentioned earlier that you had some kind of a heart condition. What was that?
Oh yeah, that was the time when I was actually the first started in summer of the 2004. Actually, when I was forced to do this kind of shoes, because the temperature was extremely hot. It's like 42 degree centigrade. It's about 105 degree Fahrenheit. In the room, it was packed by 60 inmates. It's about like 1 square meter per person. That's the room we was crammed in. And then even if you don't do anything, you sit there, you would sweat. We were still forced to do this kind of slave labor. So at that time, I feel like my heart was kind of weird. It's like sometimes I had like a premature heart beating. The heart rate went up, things like that. And then after that, was like okay. It's not that good, but it's okay. And then immediately after the slave labor, they forced me to write the thought report. Oh, this is another Chinese Communist term, because they want everybody, every party member to report their thoughts every month or every week, depending on the situation, which means you need to tell your superior what you're thinking in your mind and what you're going to do to correct your thoughts or your mind according to the party line. So that is how they stay in control. They control everybody's minds. Can you imagine that?
If you have a bad thought, then what?
Let me tell you my story, because they want me to do the same thing. Because they said I was a criminal. I have to report my thought. This is like Chinese standard. Because you are in China, so you have to comply to the laws of China. So I was forced to do this kind of mind report. And I refused to do so because I said this is a violation against my natural born rights. My thoughts are mine. Why should I report to you, right? So they forced me to sit there. Every day they came to me like, nagging me like, you should do this, otherwise the result will be, they give you a sense that it will never end. It will never end if you don't do that. And in the meantime, they also forced me to do to write some kind of summary about the criminal life, how I was reformed, things like that. I all refused. So that's immediately after the slave labor. They say like they wanted to put in pressure, all the time. So they have this thing and other thing all together. So I refused after like 40 some days. I feel like weird because in the first 2 weeks I had like back pain, that kind of things, and then I tried to fight back, against those physical conditions. And then after 40 days, my heart had some severe problem. I could not stand that condition anymore, so I had to lie down. So that was the situation, how that happened. Because the other thing is I told the American consuls about this situation, but nothing happened. I was still forced to just sit. They visit me every month. That lasted like 48 days. So anyway, they only ended because my heart had a problem. I had to lie down, otherwise I would had a severe problem. So the heart problem lasted for more than half a year, then tapered down little by little.
Do you think that you might have been treated differently if you had not been an American citizen?
That's for sure. And that is one of the reasons why they did not torture me to death, because my case drew a lot of attention, from America and also from other countries. There was a lot of pressure on the Chinese Communist regime on my case, but they still tried their best to persecute me, to try to force me to give up, to accept that unlawful verdict. If I were not an American citizen, I would be dead already. Because anybody who refused to give up, they would give you two choices. They either die or give up or comply with their requests. So that has happened to thousands of Falun Gong practitioners. As far as we know at these times, that there are 3,000 practitioners who have been tortured to death. And we know their names, their address, how they were tortured to death. But they always try to cover up. What we don't know is like tens of thousands, in a huge number, because those practitioners inside China, they risk their lives to give this message out. Somebody died, then they would do some investigation. Your co-practitioners, neighbors, things like that, would try to find a way to report this, to give this message outside by using internet, that kind of things.